Hey, it's Sarah with House Copper. Today I'm going to show you how I patch really old or really brittle copper or really crappy copper that doesn't hold up well because it's either not pure copper or it's just a really bad grade. But there's a couple different ways to do it, and I'm going to show you some of the finished stuff and then some of the actual patching that I do. There's a couple different ways to do it, and none of them are right or wrong. The only thing I'm not going to show is the brazing because I don't have the acetylene here today, and that's something I'm probably going to do with Bob later this year if we can get our act together. So, and I don't know why I sound like I'm going to cough all the time. I think even wearing my respirator, I must have gotten something in my lungs. So, without further ado, here we go. Okay, you may have remembered me using this in an earlier video on how to repair old copper. I'm guessing this piece is close to 300 years old, but it's definitely more than 200. I don't know for sure exactly. It's so brittle that it cannot be brazed. The heat would actually burn the copper completely. It's a very thin gauge of copper. You can see that it was actually has a cramp seam on the bottom. And I took out most of the dents, pulled out the leg, but there was a patch on the inside made out of tin that rusted, needed to be pulled out, and what was left behind was very shredded copper. The inside did not tin well because of its age and because I couldn't get in there with any of my tools. I've tried 4 times, but it's better than it was. But if you can see, there's a place where I couldn't quite get the tin very clean. It's still tin, and it's totally usable, and it's waterproof now. There were a lot of leaks. But there's an inside patch, and it's copper that has been tinned on this side, and then it's copper on the outside, and it is waterproof from both sides. And then once that happened, there was still a place on the inside, on the outside, that dipped down. So then I put a secondary patch over that. So this is actually a double patch. There's the patch on the inside wall and the patch on the outside wall so that it is smooth. And then what I did was I put solder on the seam on the other side of this patch, put it on, sweated it. Some of the solder did come out. If that happens, you can take like a Dremel and get most of it off, but don't go too much or you'll make another hole you have to patch. But there is the copper, and I know it's hard to see, but it's pretty much the contour of the pot. And this is waterproof, and it's going to its owner, and it will be totally usable, just like it was when it was made 250, 300 years ago. But that's what happens when something is shredded, and I can show you a quick picture of what it looked like again when I took the patch off. All right, some of these are in various stages of cleaning for retinning later this week, but I wanted to show you, see this green one? This copper was absolutely filthy in the inside. It was black. It is really poor grade. It's really thin copper, but there's a ton of holes in it. So first I had to clean it with muriatic acid. That is about 12 hours later after it's dried. So the muriatic acid can do that if you don't wash it off and tin right away. So sometimes when I've talked about, you know, if you don't tin it right away, it'll start to re-etch the copper. It's not verdigris. Verdigris is that. That's the bad stuff. This is just left over from the muriatic wash. It will come off. I actually did some stripping in a different bowl of the same make, but you can see this is all damage from the verdigris, which will etch the copper. It doesn't rust the copper, but it etches the copper. That is irreparable, but there are these holes, and this is what the owner wants me to repair. So I cut a patch like this, and what I'm gonna do So I'm going to put a little bit of solder on the tips here, and I'm going to place it right over this large hole and heat it up with the torch, and it will be patched, and then from the outside it'll just be copper, and then when we clean that up it'll look really nice. So I'm going to show you how I do that, and we'll go from there. I have my flux over here, which is really dirty actually, but it's still flux and it works. My hole is going to get fluxed. And my patch is going to get fluxed just a little bit. I have my soldering iron. So there's my tin. I wish I could show you better. Maybe I'll hold it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to heat it and place it right over this. And now, I know you can't really tell, but it's patched. That's it. The end. You used heat and a little backward soldering, but there's the copper patch. You have to be really careful because sometimes this can overheat and you actually burn a bigger hole in your copper, so you have to be really, really careful about that. It happens all the time. Bob and I have burned holes in copper pieces that are next to irreparable. I mean, they're repairable, but at that point it's like you may as well just start over. I can't do that with pieces that people give me, but that's what I do. So there's some patching work. As always, questions, comments, advice is always welcome. Thank you for watching.